Hey everyone, welcome back to I Dream of Indie. Old Gamer Joe with you once again. Today we are taking a look at Elden, Path of the Forgotten on Nintendo Switch, currently priced at $15.99. This game was developed by One Rat Games and published by another indie studio, released onto Switch on July 9th of 2020. It's a one-player action-adventure role-playing title. Similar to a Dark Souls or Bloodborne-style game, there's very little storyline. This is an extremely cryptic game in terms of how much it will actually tell you about the world that you're in and the characters in that world. This is even more heightened by the fact that every time you enter a new area in Elden, Path of the Forgotten, it's introduced in a cryptic writing that you won't be able to decipher. You get one cutscene in the game which shows your mother being sucked into an evil interdimensional portal of some sorts. There are some Lovecraftian themes to this game as well, and that's really it. From there, you're dropped into a top-down view, and similar to a Zelda or a Legacy of Kain-style game, you'll begin to explore the area around you, taking out a variety of different enemies. There are some very subtle hints that will guide you along the way, but expect to get lost quite a bit in Elden, Path of the Forgotten. That can be pretty frustrating, especially when your character feels so slow in this game. It's almost like the entire experience is stuck in mud, the frame rate's not really where it's supposed to be, and this gets even worse once you get into the game's combat. Yes, outside of exploration, there are some enemies you'll have to contend with, and you'll have to take them out using 3 different weapons. You have an axe, a sword, and a spear. You can cycle through them using the directional buttons, and I guess the idea behind each weapon is that the axe is stronger but slower, the sword is kind of your average weapon, and then the spear is for speed, though it doesn't really feel all that speedy. You also have the ability to dodge out of the enemy's ways by using a roll, and that also feels pretty slow and clumsy. You can also use the directional pad to access a few different items, including potions which will heal you from poison, as well as apples which will recover some of your health. But on the whole, I get what they were going for here, definitely that Souls vibe in its combat, but it just doesn't work because the game is so sluggish and slow, and the combat doesn't feel responsive or fun whatsoever. You'll take a lot of cheap enemy damage in this title, and it doesn't feel like it was your fault most of the time, rather it's the performance of the game. You also have a stamina bar which you'll have to keep your eye on, but on the whole I found this combat system to be pretty frustrating and not much fun at all. Things only get worse when the game forces you into combat situations. Expect a lot of frustration here, because if there's more than 3 or 4 enemies on screen at once, you're going to be in a slow motion fest. Overall, I can't say the combat and movement in this title is broken necessarily, but it's certainly very slow and sluggish and not much fun to interact with. That's a shame because Elden, Path of the Forgotten does feature some pretty nice pixel art. I enjoyed the graphics of this title, the presentation is solid, there's some interesting boss designs in the title as well as some enemies. It's almost in a way kind of a shame that they chose to tell the story in such a cryptic manner, because it would have been cool if at least you could pick up some items that told you more about the world. But on the whole, this is a pretty nice looking indie game. I can't say the sound is anything exceptional though, it gets the job done. Some of the sword swings are satisfying enough. The soundtrack itself doesn't feature any memorable tracks, at least in my opinion, but the sound design is decent overall. At the end of the day though, I can't really recommend Elden, Path of the Forgotten to players in its current form because it's not a whole lot of fun to actually play. The combat is just far too sluggish, the movement is really slow, and even if you do force yourself to press forward, there's no real reward at the end of the tunnel. The game is really short to top it off. It's pretty disappointing actually, because on the outside looking in, Elden, Path of the Forgotten really seemed like an intriguing, interesting title to me. It makes for a great trailer, but it's not a great game to actually play. So will you be checking out Elden, Path of the Forgotten? Let us know in the comments section below, and if you have enjoyed our coverage today, consider hitting the subscribe button to help us bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming. There's a ton of other ways to support I Dream of Indie down in the description box, including our Discord channel as well as our Patreon. However you end up supporting us though, we thank you so much for doing so.